Hello and welcome to another episode. Today is going to be a lot of fun because we're going on a journey of the history of biscuits. Yep, we've come all the way to LA for a cup of tea and biscuits. Why? Because we're joined by Max.
That was very natural.
Cloche number one, we're starting with the biscuit tin itself. It's a very British thing.
Yeah, my nan's got one. And it's the one thing we do when we go to nan's house. Teas, biscuit tin, and there's every type of biscuit inside.
See, in America, biscuit tins at your grandma's house would usually be filled with sewing accoutrement.
We have tins. Don't you have cookie jars?
So yeah, we have biscuit tins, decorative, and they kind of came popular in the 1850s when Britain was a huge supplier of tin. So all of a sudden, we had something that didn't rust, that could be airtight to keep our biscuits in, around the same time as the printing press could actually print on tin, which meant they could be hugely decorative, and biscuit brands or grocers could take advantage of it and make them advertising and marketing space for your biscuits.
I had no idea there was history behind a biscuit tin. I thought it was the most basic thing out.
More importantly, what's inside?
Have you had these before?
No, they look like Lorna Doones, but I'm guessing that's not what they are.
No, these are custard creams.
It says custard cream on there.
Also, because it's double layered, there's no flop. It absorbs the moisture.
Right.
And you've got a creamy surprise in the middle. That's a horrific thing to say.
Oh, you're talking to your flop? You've just flopped. We brought you as the expert here.
Sorry.
It's the American
was
tea.
distracted.
It's the American tea. It's very acidic. It'll eat through anything.
But also, I don't mind it when it falls in the tea because it gives you a nice little surprise at the bottom later on.
You say nice, I'm not so sure. But yeah, these are a sandwich biscuit. Traditionally would have had buttercream, vanilla buttercream in the middle. Nowadays it's kind of less likely to be butter, but it's still got that vanilla flavour, and it was reminiscent of Bird's custard powder in flavour, which is why it gets the name custard cream.
That makes sense, because I was like, there's no way these were ever custard in there, right?
And the decorative design is Baroque in style. It's covered in ferns, and it was kind of arcing back to Victorian times, even though this was originated in 1908, and it hasn't changed in design ever since.
I've never stopped to study a custard cream properly. But yeah, that's quite a design.
Well, Baroque is the late 17th through mid 18th century, and it just tends to be over-the-top ornamental, lots of whites and golds and sometimes silver. And a part of that also was the Rococo era, and that I believe had shell, like a seashell.
Like a scallop shell.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can tell if there's a scallop shell in the architecture or whatever that it's Rococo. Pineapple was also very popular, but that was just a different.
The pineapple became a symbol of higher class.
Yeah.
In fact, the Wimbledon tournament, the tennis tournament, the trophy has a pineapple on top of it because it was like the ultimate thing to win.
You wouldn't actually eat the pineapple. You could rent them.
You could rent a pineapple.
You would rent a pineapple and put it as a centerpiece on your table. They were far too expensive to eat, and it became such a status symbol.
You make history so much more interesting than he does.
And this, you think about the biscuit, this is of an era, 1908, this is kind of a little luxury in the UK. Tea and biscuits, it was kind of, suddenly sugar is much more accessible, but even though it is the most basic of biscuits, they wanted that elegance and that kind of style of Baroque era. You're right on the dunking. In a poll or a survey of British tea drinkers and biscuit dunkers, it was ranked 8th.
That's not great.
I think if we were part of that poll, custard cream would be higher up the rankings.
Yeah.
That was biscuit number 1. Would you like a second?
4th, actually. I've already had 3 of those.
Yeah, we might have to pace ourselves.
All yours. Lift the cloche.
Et voila.
Bourbon biscuits.
Bourbon biscuits.
Oh.
But why is it called that, Baz?
I haven't got a clue. They look chocolatey, but don't taste it. They're like a hint of chocolate. There's not much flavour to them.
You're really talking them up.
I love
All much sweetness, therefore you could just keep dunking, keep eating, and they just disappear.
I love a Bourbon biscuit, but have a try.
Cheers.
Cheers. Or am I not supposed to dunk?
Mix and
Any
match.
biscuit can be dunked.
All right. It's really mild.
Yeah, it has a slight chocolate bitterness in there.
It's like It remembers what chocolate tastes like.
That's what it is,
and it's
yeah.
trying to explain it to me.
It's more the flavour of cocoa than chocolate.
Yeah. Oh, they forgot the sugar.
It is another sandwich biscuit. This one is chocolatey, but lots of thoughts about where the name might come from, one of which being, is it French, and was it made using the very best of the butter, i.e. the butter that kind of rises to the top of the cream, the Borbon, i.e. the best butter. That was kind of understood to be a fallacy, as was any link to American whiskey. It was invented by a German guy who was working in Cadbury's R&D centre, and because he was German, the name came from the combination of Bourneville, where he developed the biscuit, and Bonn in Germany. So it was Borbon. It was the place where he was born and the place where he developed the biscuit, Borbon. It was a German guy called Dr. Hans Zenlock. In German, that literally means Zenlock 10 holes, which is why there are 10 holes on every Bourbon biscuit.
He's making this up at this point.
No, this is not how history works. You can't make it up. He must have been full of himself, mustn't he? To name the biscuit after the two places he grew up and his own name to put 10 holes in it.
If I ever invent a food, I'm gonna do that kind of same thing though.
Yeah.
Hidden code.
Yeah, it's all about me.
You'll be glad to know it beats the custard cream in the ranking of dunkedness because it comes 5th.
Wait, so people prefer this to the custard cream?
Apparently a better dunker.
Yeah, but the flavor is not better.
One last fun fact, the Bourbon biscuit was the first biscuit to be eaten on the moon.
Who? What?
Yep, Buzz Aldrin was the first person to eat a Bourbon biscuit. A classic.
Rubbish. I'm not having that. I need photographic evidence or it didn't happen. I mean, there are lots of conspiracy theories out there about the moon landing, but I think that has undone everything. It was all rubbish because that did not happen.
Let's move on to biscuit number 3.
If you're enjoying this, there are some small things you can do that make a big difference to us. Like the video. Subscribe if you aren't. Click the notification bell and select all. Thanks.
Lift the cloche on number 3.
Please tell me you've had this before.
Is this a Jammy Dodger?
Yes!
Yeah, I have not actually had one. I've seen them though. I know what they look like.
I don't love these. They're one of those things that you always look at and go, oh, they're the first thing that catch your eye because they're glistening little heart in the middle. Yeah. But again, I don't feel like they're punching very hard. They're quite a bland biscuit again, and even the jam isn't that sweet.
Yeah, it makes it kind of chewy.
It's a biscuit that feels like it's aimed at kids, but they're always in my nan's biscuit drawer.
I was gonna say, I feel like these are aimed at old ladies.
Funny you should say that. The Jammy Dodger was named in the very same 2009 biscuit survey as the UK children's biscuit favourite.
So do you dunk these?
No.
Because it feels weird to dunk these, right?
Yeah, it doesn't feel right to dunk them.
Not even mentioned. They were the children's favourite, but in dunking criteria, they're not up there. Still pretty old, introduced in 1960. And since that very first day, right up until today, they're still all made in the very same factory in Wales, which is part of the Borbon Biscuit Company. Do you know why and how they get their name?
Anything to do with the Artful Dodger?
Off of Oliver Twist? No.
Oh, then it's the Los Angeles Dodgers, of course. Big fans in Wales of American baseball.
Surprise, surprise, not that either. It's named after a character in the Beano.
Oh, brilliant, yes. Who in the Beano?
Roger the Dodger.
Roger the Dodger. Have you heard of the Beano?
No, what is it?
Whoa. Dennis the Menace?
Yeah.
He was from the magazine, the Beano. So the Beano it's a bit like the British version of Marvel.
Oh.
Full of a lot of characters with spin-offs.
Yeah, lots of characters.
The comic or magazine itself started in 1938, although this biscuit was named after Roger the Dodger, who was constantly trying to dodge his homework, and then he dodged the punishments that were given to him when he dodged his homework. Roger the Dodger was very mischievous. This is the Jammy Dodger. In the US, is there like a love for comics and that kind of vibe, and like in that similar sort of era?
There are tons. I mean, there's everything from Little Orphan Annie. We have a freaking musical about her. The Addams Family.
They were comics.
Those were comics. Yeah, there were a lot of shows and movies that ended up becoming popular that were based on comics. We used to call them the funny papers or the funny pages.
Any biscuits that have been inspired by comics from America?
Not that I know of.
Well, there we go. Not your favourite, the chewy Jammy Dodger, named after a comic character. Let's move on to the next one. Biscuit number 4, possibly my favourite.
Oh, controversial, Ebbers.
It looks nice. Is this Jaffa Cake?
Let's be honest, falls absolutely in the biscuit category, but is a cake.
Never dunk them. Never to be dunked. And there's a very, very specific way you have to eat these. Bite around the edge, and then
No, if I'm honest, I think Barry's the man.
I rip off the Jaffa, and then pop it on the tongue, let it melt away.
I'm just gonna...
Oh, I love it.
I love the texture.
Yeah.
Super, super soft. It is definitely more cake-like. What is the filling?
So it's a very thin layer of Jaffa, as in Jaffa orange, jelly. So it is an orange jelly, it's dark chocolate, and it is a cake base.
There is a big debate around these between are they cakes, are they biscuits? They are cakes because if you leave them out, they do go stale. That is, to my understanding, the definition of a cake now. No, if you leave a biscuit out, they go limp, don't they? Whereas a cake goes hard.
So Jaffa Cakes are from McVitie's. So started by Robert McVitie in 1809. At the age of 30, he bought a store in Edinburgh, and it was provisions in general, but actually the biscuits really took off because biscuits travelled better. So he kind of doubled down on biscuits, did really well on those, and then got the royal seal of approval when he was asked to bake the royal wedding cake, which was pretty much crumb-coated in digestive biscuits.
Wait, whose royal wedding was it?
1893, it would have been Queen Mary and King George V.
Mary was very into sending tins with biscuits and other things to the soldiers in World War I. And she actually had her face on them. And then later they had their daughter's face, the princess as well.
On the biscuits?
No, on the tins.
Oh, right.
You can still find them online if you want to spend a few $1,000s or pounds. Well, because they're 110 years old.
And you mentioned the debate of cake and biscuit. I'm going to read this verbatim so that I don't get into any legal trouble. Under UK law, VAT on cakes and biscuits is set at 0%. However, crucially, the law states that if a biscuit is partially or wholly covered in chocolate, then it is to be taxed at the standard rate. And therefore, McVitie's fought to prove that these are cakes and not biscuits.
It's the same thing with shortbread. One of the theories of why they continued to call it bread, even after it was no longer bread, was because bread was not taxed the way that confections.
Do you want one more Scottish biscuit treat?
Let's do it.
Was that Scottish?
I don't know.
Okay.
Let's do it.
That was better.
Ooh. Now this is a special treat. These are very rarely in a tin, purely because they go so quickly.
So it feels fluffy. I'm not usually a marshmallow kind of guy, but since it's just the fluff, it really works.
Oh.
It's very sweet in a good way.
Yep, it's the Tanuk Teacake. So it's still a family-owned business, and it is one of those stories that has many generations of bakers behind it. So Thomas Tanuk originally bought and opened a bakery in Scotland. He then had a son who went to war. When that son returned from war, unfortunately his father had passed away, but his dad's dying wishes was to reopen the bakery and for his son to do that. So his son carried on the bakery in his father's name, or their family name. He married and had 2 sons, and one of those sons, Boyd, was challenged to come up with something completely new, and he took inspiration from Italian meringue and put it on top of a biscuit wrapped in chocolate, and that was the Tanuk Teacake.
That makes sense. I get the Italian meringue now. It's like really shiny,
Yeah.
soft.
I didn't realise it was Scottish. It doesn't look Scottish.
It's not wearing a kilt.
It's quite light and dainty.
What's amazing is that Boyd, who invented this in 1956, has recently been knighted for his services to business and charity and biscuits, because the Queen absolutely loved a Tanuk Teacake, and in 2019 he became Sir Boyd Tanuk.
Who knew you could become a sir from inventing a biscuit?
Yeah, is it a biscuit?
We started with the sandwich biscuit, which had biscuit with something else sandwiched between. This is an enrobed biscuit, i.e. it's coated in chocolate with something on top.
And since it's enrobed with chocolate, it's going to be taxed at that higher rate. See, I have learned something today. Something about the tax code of the UK.
I don't know if this is true or not, but isn't there a story about these not being allowed to go in planes?
Yep, because it's enrobed, and therefore it has completely sealed in that marshmallow middle. Marshmallow is a lot of air. These are the only biscuits to be banned from RAF cockpits, because once one exploded at altitude, the air bubbles expanded, the chocolate went pop, and the last thing you want is a sticky, messy cockpit. Max, we've fed you a lot of biscuits. Do you have a favourite?
I'm gonna go all the way back to the very first one.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really, really liked it. It was one of the most simple, but especially with the dunking. Perfect.
Custard creams take the win.
Custard cream.
Simple and elegant as a biscuit, Baroque in style, what's not to love? Over to you guys, comment down below, which of those 5 biscuits would be your favourite? And we've also asked Max to dive into the history of the cousin of the biscuit, cookies. That'll be over on his channel, and we'll link to it down below.